Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get started. We have quorum. And I see Gord Roberts, Councillor Roberts has joined us. You can hear me all right? Perfect. Okay, then I'm going to call us to order at 1:16 p.m. 1:15 p.m. There you go. And I can confirm that all members are present. Consequently, we do have quorum. No members are absent. I can also confirm that the CAO, the clerk, and other members of the senior management team are here with us as well. And I would like to start by acknowledging that we are on lands traditionally occupied by Indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples have cared for this territory for the benefit of future generations, and their stewardship throughout the ages is recognized. Miigwech. Okay, today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. And by participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, your voice, and your comments being recorded and posted online. We did ask for input on this agenda at our standard location, which is TML public comment at muskokalakes.ca. And we did just one. Yes, this morning. Okay, and we did receive, I just can confirm, one from Ali Brown, or was it from our Muskoka? One or the other. I don't have it in front of me. Received this morning. That's on behalf of our Muskoka. Thank you very much. I can acknowledge that there is a supplementary agenda. It was issued to cover basically two things. Pursuant to section 7.2.1 of Council Procedure Bylaw 2023-089, a supplementary agenda was issued to add the following. First, under 6A, public comments were received from Janie and Don Graham, re 11.B.1, Bylaw 2024-086, being a bylaw to license, regulate, and govern short-term rental accommodations in the Township of Muskoka Lakes. And B, additional submissions were received under 11.A.1, Bylaw 2024-083, ZBA-08/24, bracket 2784805, Ontario Inc., Pier 100, roll number 9-13-066. So next thing up is to ask if anyone has any pecuniary interest they wish to disclose. And I see Councillor Mazan, your hand is up.
Thank you. I will be recusing from the section on the minutes, which I believe is section 7. And then from 11B1, I think it's 11B1. Is that correct? Yes, the discussion on short-term rentals, as I continue to have an indirect pecuniary interest. And I will also be recusing from one item on the closed agenda. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else with pecuniary disclosure? I see none. So I will move on to the last administrative comment, and that is motions that we present will be have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders just to expedite the meeting. And secondly, voting, members will physically raise their hand until the mayor has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded by the clerk, but this vote would not be considered a recorded vote. Okay. You just change gears here a little bit. Get to. All right. What do we got here? Okay. These are the minutes on the consent agenda. Is that right? Okay. All right. I have a resolution to read, moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that the mayor and council adopt and enact the following minutes and recommendations contained in the August 14, 2024 consent agenda, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. And there are 3 here. July 10, 2024 General and Finance Committee minutes and action items 1 through 9. Number 2 is July 10, 2024 council minutes. And the third and final one is July 11, 2024 planning committee minutes and action items 1 through 11. Anybody with any comments on that? No, seeing none, I've read the resolution. I'll call the vote. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. All right, next up for me is the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw Update Steering Committee report. And I don't actually know who's presenting. Okay, we're going to have Director Procy, please.
Just noting that the report is before you with the 3 members of council recommended for appointment. In closed session were the remainder of the citizen appointments. So if there was any desire to discuss those, I would recommend tabling this resolution and we could discuss it after closed session. Everything else is there before you and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. So I'm not seeing anybody reacting to that. If we approve this, we've approved both the matters in open and in closed, right? And we'll have no need to refer back to that matter when we get into closed. Councillor Kent.
I would think that this is something we could talk about in closed. Why are we not bringing this forward in closed? Because it's a matter that I think has some sensitivity if we talk about it in open. That's all.
That's fine. And if you wish to discuss it, that's when we would move it into closed or leave it in closed. If you just simply want to vote on it and approve it without any other discussion, we can go ahead right now.
I just thought it was, anyway, okay. Do what you want. It's fine. Approve it if you want. That's fine.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, I'll read the resolution. Be it resolved, moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the following council members be appointed to the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw Update Steering Committee. Number 1, Councillor Robert Bosenworth, Vice Chair, Councillor Mary Ellen McIntyre, and Councillor Gord Roberts. And that citizen members be appointed to Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw Steering or Update Steering Committee as detailed in confidential memo CCS-2024-19 and that confidential memo CCS-2024-19 hereby be made public. Any questions? All in favor? Oh,
I did have one question, which I will ask is, it appears as if there's like no waterfront apart from Rob, Councillor Bosworth. The 2 other members are not representative of the waterfront community. And I just question why we don't have some councillors who live on the water, since 70% of the issues related to the bylaw are related to waterfront residential issues. And they're more aware of those issues and involved in those issues and are representing the community of people who are impacted by those issues. That's my only question for the chair.
Councillor Nishikawa.
I don't live on Lake Muskoka, but I work every single day on Lake Muskoka. I work with my constituents. I'm very well aware of what happens on Walker's Point. And in fact, Councillor McIntyre's engagement with the community, I don't have any problem with this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor McIntyre. Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I am a waterfront property owner, and I've lived on the waterfront in Muskoka for over 50 years. Correct.
So,
Correction, I've lived on the waterfront for the past 10 years.
thank you. Okay, does that answer the question? I think. Your light's not on. Sorry, I'm not sure that we're going to carry on with this. this discussion. Thank you. Okay, so I think have I read this? I've read this. I've called the question. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. That carries. Okay. All right, next one, I believe, is Pure 100, if I'm not mistaken. And do we have a report? Oh, here we are. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kelley, and good afternoon, members of council. As council may recall, zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 0824 in the name of 2784805 Ontario Inc. was last heard by Planning Committee on July 11th, 2024. Planning Committee recommended that some exemptions be approved and some be denied. Committee also recommended a number of changes to the bylaw and the attached schedules prior to today's council meeting. A summary of these changes is as follows. As-built housekeeping unit number 11, located within the existing recreational building, is to be removed. This building will contain only an office for the resort and an existing 2-bedroom unit to be converted from a dwelling to staff quarters. The fire pits shown on Schedule 2 to the bylaw have been removed. Committee has expressed a preference for a communal fire pit rather than 10 individual fire pits. These details will be worked out at the site plan control stage, though staff would emphasize that a fire pit has not historically been categorized as a structure and therefore cannot be regulated through zoning. The accommodation unit or dome is to be removed. The request for relief from the required side yard setback for unit number 1 and the attached sun deck have been denied or have been recommended to be denied. The unit will need to be returned to its original size at the legal non-complying setback that existed, or it can maintain its as-built size but will need to be brought into a compliant setback, being 30 feet. A site-specific definition of on-site management has been included in the bylaw. A second dwelling on the property is to be converted to housekeeping unit number 10, and revitalization of a sports court, which has fallen into disrepair, is to be maintained as use for pickleball and basketball. Provided council is supportive of the conversion of the existing dwelling within the recreational building to be staff quarters, staff recommend that a minor amendment be made to permit staff quarters to be 10 feet from the easterly side lot line at the closest point. This is the existing setback of the building and is largely technical in nature. The township's authority to impose site plan control falls under Section 41 of the Planning Act, and the requirements for administration of site plan control, including what can be considered through site plan control, are also mandated by Section 41 of the Act. A number of items that have been discussed in previous meetings for this application are to be addressed through the site plan control process, including but not limited to the renaturalization and fencing to delineate property boundaries. The site-specific bylaw to designate the property as subject to the site plan control process is on the agenda for later today. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to assist council with any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Crowder. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Mazan.
This isn't a question, but I would like to suggest a minor amendment to this bylaw, if that's okay.
I think so. And unless anyone has any other questions for Ms. Crowder while she's here, we can talk about minor amendment. Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And through you. I just think in our discussion last month, we were talking about the number of bedrooms. And I just think this, I would like to add into this as a minor amendment language, something like shall be a maximum of 30 bedrooms. So if that's something that staff could help facilitate, I think would be a helpful addition.
Ms. Crowder? What do you think?
Chair. Yes, if that is the wish of council, we can include a minor amendment to limit the number of bedrooms to 30 on the property.
Anyone with other thoughts, comments? I think I saw, thumbs up. Councillor Nishikawa.
I support the 30 bedrooms for sure. And I also wanted to ask, and I thought actually this was going to be discussed further down, so I'll bring this up again, but the fencing the fencing concerns me, and I recognize that it may have concerned the neighbors as well, and did we put a recommendation of the type of fencing that we wanted, you know, because certainly cedar hedges, for instance, are a form of hedging, but they're not so we don't want you at all kind of thing, like, you know, from a big, so I'm just not sure what our recommendations were for that. And if it could be discussed a little bit further of what that should look like. Or other options, I guess, that we just don't have to expect a chain link fence to be popping up.
Does anyone have comment on that one?
Gord's got his hand up.
Councillor Roberts? Councillor Roberts? Councillor Roberts, sorry, I might have been mute. I think he's frozen. It's an unfortunate spot to be frozen.
I think I was frozen.
You were, clearly you were.
I apologize. I better off being frozen sometimes. I too had heard concerns from the neighbors on the type of fencing and what the fencing could be. So there is basically the fencing was proposed, my understanding, when we were talking about trespassing. So I would suggest that maybe during the site control process that perhaps staff could reach out to the abutting properties just to obtain their input. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Crowder?
Thank you, through you, Chair. I think that what staff have heard is that the main concern is trespassing and delineating the property boundaries for that purpose to prevent trespassing and such. So I think what could be an option is to, through the site plan agreement process, require some signage, some no trespassing signage of such. I think there was some discussion at Planning Committee last month about the type of fence, and from staff's perspective, we were more so looking for a fence for that purpose, to delineate the boundaries and such, not so much to block views or you know, we didn't necessarily need 10-foot tall opaque fences, but as far as if we can regulate the type of fence, I'm not entirely sure. I see Mr. Sharp's got his hand up, so perhaps he can elaborate.
Mr. Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Crowder. The zoning bylaw doesn't regulate fences. It was Planning Committee's direction that they wanted to see fencing. I recall Mr. Evans had indicated that, you know, a wooden fence, you know, say 8 or 10 feet high around the entire perimeter of the property could be quite cost prohibitive. And that was something that he was willing to entertain, but he was thinking, you know, something that may be less cost prohibitive, such as like a chain link fence. My only concern with, you know, sort of reaching out to the neighbors, each neighbor, to determine, you know, whether they want a fence, what type of fence do they want. You know, it could be a little bit hard for staff to administer that process. So, you know, it may be that the applicant's agent perhaps reaches out to the neighbors to gain some idea of whether they would want a fence or not, and sort of we could proceed on that basis. I'm just throwing out ideas. I mean, we can certainly do our best, but those are my thoughts at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. I do think that's a great idea. I really do think so. I think I see the applicant's agent nodding as well. So they're willing to take that up and upon themselves. Anybody else with comments? Councillor Nishikawa?
Thank you. This is probably more of an education from my perspective, but would a retaining wall more or less be considered a fence? And the reason why I'm asking this is, again, it's not it's stopping people from, but I just would like to know this so that I can, you know, move the idea forward in other conversations, I guess. So.
That's a great question. I mean, I don't know that there's a definition of fences that excludes retaining walls, but Mr. Sharp does.
Through you, Chair, I certainly appreciate that a retaining wall may form, somewhat of a physical barrier that may impede people from entering onto a property. I don't know whether I would call that necessarily a fence. I think the cost of that could be quite expensive. And again, I don't know what type of retaining wall you were necessarily envisioning, but boulders, yeah, I mean that, I've seen that in parking lots and whatnot, but I'm pretty confident that at the end of the day, staff can come up with something. We'll work with Mr. Evans and the applicant, as he has indicated, to come up with something that works. Thank you.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else with comments or questions? Nope. Councillor Mazan.
Thank you. And through you, I just wanted to confirm that we're just talking about the zoning bylaw right now, but I will have another comment on the site plan when we get to that later on the
Yep, when we
agenda.
get
Thank
to it,
you.
That's fine. That's good. Okay, any other comments? Councillor Bosenworth.
Are we going to revise the resolution to include 30 cabins, bedrooms?
30 bedrooms. I believe that's when we get to that part. Yes. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to read a resolution. So. All right, so the main resolution will be read first, moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-083 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 bracket 2784805 Ontario Inc. Roll number 9-13-066 be read a first and second time. Any comments? Go ahead and call this. I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay, great. And now we have a minor amendment, and there are two parts to it, but I will read it. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that Township Council amend bylaw 2024-083 bracket 2784805 Ontario Inc. Roll number 9-13-066. And these amendments are minor in nature and do not require further public circulation and are hereby approved prior to third reading. The amendments shall consist of, first, permitting a minimum setback for staff quarters from the easterly side lot line of 10 feet. And second, restricting the maximum number of bedrooms to 30. Any questions, comments? Councillor Edwards.
Just for clarification, I believe it was covered, but on page 97, in that section 3, stated unit 1 is 6 feet from the line that has been crossed off. It's not in the new resolution.
Okay. Ms. Crowder, did you hear that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Okay, I'm just looking at page 97 with the conditions. Condition number 3, I believe we actually defeated that, but it's shown here on the draft. And I just wanted to make sure that that was.
Page 93, let's go in there. 97.
You see it there, Emily?
I do. Through you, Chair. Yeah, I'm looking at page 97 of the council agenda, and it looks like the old version of the bylaw is on there,
That's right.
and it shouldn't be.
Thank you.
Mr. Sharp.
Through you, Chair, I would just also note that I'm looking at a copy of the council agenda, and it may be that there was a supplementary agenda posted, but the one that I had downloaded had the correct version of the bylaw. So seems like maybe somewhere along the lines, our wires have been crossed. And whatever, the most recent version is the old version of the bylaw. So we may need to just take a moment to sort this out.
So shall we take a 5-minute, 10-minute break? You need some time to figure it? Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, let's take 5 minutes to make sure we're doing this right. Thank you. Just let us know when you're ready to go. Thank you. All right, get your attention, please. Ms. Crowder, what'd you find out?
Thank you, through you, Chair. So we've figured out that there was a little bit of some technology glitches going on, but the resolution that's been read is reflective of the correct version. We'll sort out the IT issues for next round, make sure it doesn't happen again. But we can screen share the bylaw for you if that would make people feel more comfortable.
Does anyone wish to see it on the screen? We'll just go ahead with it. Okay, so we've already passed and through 2 readings. Now we've got minor amendments. I've read this, haven't I? I think I read this. Thank you, Alan, for pointing that out. And I mean that. Okay, so I've read the question. Anybody have any comments on the 2 proposed minor amendments? Seeing none, all in favor? Now that carries. Thank you very much. Last one, sorry, moved by Councillor Moyer Kent, seconded by McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-083 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, 2784805 Ontario Inc., roll number 9-13-066, be read a 3rd time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you very much. That carries. Thank you. Okay, next up is just let me make sure I'm on the right page here. Track investments. All right, and I don't think we have any report. Nobody stepping up. Oh, yes, we do. Sorry, come on up and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kelley. On July 11th, 2024, Planning Committee made a recommendation to Council to approve ZBA 2724, bylaw 2024-084 in the name of Track Investments Limited and Trotter. Please note that the requested setback from the land zoned rural industrial RUM3 on the resultant lot is 15 feet as shown on Schedule 2, not 28 feet as stated in bylaw 2024-084. Staff can make the necessary minor amendment to the bylaw and have no concerns with the setback. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from Council. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Beamish. Does anyone have any questions on what we've just heard or what we've read? All right, seeing none, I'm going to read a resolution moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-084 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Track Investments Ltd. and Trotter, roll number 5-4-057-01, be read a 1st and 2nd time. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Next up, I have a resolution moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved the Township Council amend bylaw 2024-084, bracket Track Investments Ltd. and Trotter, roll number 5-4-057-01. And these amendments are minor in nature and do not require further public circulation and are hereby approved prior to 3rd reading. The amendments shall consist of permitting a minimum setback for a garage on the resultant lot in consent severance application B/21/24/ML from adjacent land zone rural industrial bracket RUM3 of 15 feet. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. And last, moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-084 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, bracket Track Investments Ltd. and Trotter, roll number 5-4-057-01, be read a 3rd time and finally passed. Any comments? All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Okay, now, next one up. Sure, you're going to have a presentation from CAO Pink.
Sorry, not a presentation at all, but thank you, Your Worship. Just quickly to clarify, there was actually not the incorrect bylaw attached on the agenda. The page that we were looking at for Pier 100 was actually formed part of the District of Muskoka submission. And because all the submissions are attached, they had the correct bylaw is on page 123 in your agenda packages. Just thought I'd clarify because going forward, I think the district will continue to make submissions in that format and hopefully someone remembers that it doesn't throw us off. Thank you.
You haven't heard anything we've said since. Okay, yeah, right. All right, next one is the bylaw to regulate and govern short-term rentals. And we have Mr. Kennedy joining us. Thank you and welcome. Floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Council. Just a short overview of the report. This is now the final version of the short-term rental licensing bylaw for the township, bylaw 2024-086. Just to clarify a few things, we did undertake a legal review of the bylaw after Planning Committee gave its approval. And as a result of that legal review, there were some minor amendments made to some sections, more or less just minor word changes to better reflect and clarify some of the sections in the bylaw. If any member of council wishes to talk about the legal review in more detail, that should be done in closed session. Aside from that, what I would like to discuss is the further updates of what we're going to do in the next couple months if this is approved today. So we will endeavor to update and amend the fees and charges bylaw to reflect the licensing fees that were approved last month as well. And we also will be amending the administrative monetary penalty system bylaw to include the penalty table that was in one of the appendices in last month's report. I am also endeavoring, as recommended in the report, that we are looking to sole source with Granicus host compliance for our monitoring software. Again, if approved today, I have been in contact with a member at Granicus, and we are setting up a possible, I guess, crash course, if you will, or overview of the software for Planning Committee in a future meeting that will hopefully show everybody here and everybody in the public exactly what type of software we're going to be using, and more or less to showcase, the software that would be purchased. Aside from that, if there are any questions for me at this time, I'd be more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much. And thank you for all the work you put into getting us this far. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Councillor Burry.
Thank you. Through you to Rob. What if we changed it from $1,000 a year to $500 a year for everybody, whether it's waterfront or backlot? What are the financial implications of doing that? I've heard a fair bit of pushback on 1,000. There's some other municipalities that are using 500, and I'm just wondering what the financial implications are, because I'm hearing at 500, we're going to get several of the major brokers on side.
Through you, Chair. It's essentially up to council on what you wish to do with the licensing fees. The amendment to the fees and charges bylaw is not before us today. So we have ample opportunity to amend that if you wish. I will state that even at $1,000 per year for waterfront properties, that is one of the more cheaper options in the district of Muskoka.
Let me, Jenny, follow up to that. I just have a quick question for Mr. Kennedy. You mentioned that the fees and charges bylaw is not in front of us, so we aren't actually setting rates today. Even if we approve the whole thing as submitted, at some point we can come back later and deal with setting whatever the appropriate licensing structure or fee structure is.
Through you, that is correct.
Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa and then Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, through you to you. When we attended Roma a couple of years ago, and this was a big topic, and I was very impressed by the conversations from Prince Edward County, and they weren't all positive, I would say. And I didn't bring my notebook with all of those comments, but I kind of wish we could hear from a user directly. And the reason why I feel that way is because they mentioned a number of challenges that they were having. And I'm not hearing, we're not getting that kind of feedback. I'm very concerned about how much money we're spending, and then not moving forward with it. I would say to its benefit.
Just for my clarification, when you say a user, you mean a licensed or a potential short-term rental? Oh, another municipality. I got you. Let me ask Mr. Kennedy a question. Have you had occasion to talk to other municipalities about the services and the facility that's available to us through Granicus and others?
Yeah, through the chair, I've had discussions with a number of other municipalities, colleagues of mine that are using Granicus at this time. Yes, there are some challenges in some municipalities just with the uniqueness of those. But for the most part, most of the comments that are coming back about that software are quite good. It does help a lot, and enforcement would be quite a lot easier with that type of software.
Sorry, Councilor Nishikawa, you had a follow-up?
You, we're just generalizing, but I heard quite specific challenges, and I'll reach out to those municipalities myself, but I can't vote in favor of this today because of those outlining questions. And to just sort of generalize, yeah, they had challenges, but that's not quite enough information to justify this size of a purchase. Sorry.
I think Councillor Zabit, you were next. Didn't you have yours up?
Oh, thank you. Through you. I guess, just the fervor of the last meeting and how we, all that horse trading we did to get to where we now have this draft in front of us. I wouldn't want to lose some of the spirit of that. And I think this is a good discussion to have. And I think we, I'll just kind of continue to listen in. Because, what I haven't heard anything about fees. I haven't heard that that's $1,000 when they, given what people rent for. I just think that's a joke that we would even be discussing fees. Although I don't understand, I guess, I don't understand why that isn't rolled into what we're discussing today. I thought it was, given the report. And I guess I'm a little unclear as to why, we can always change things down that road. Is that what you're saying? Or why are we contemplating that here today?
Correct me if I'm wrong, there's a separate bylaw that governs all of the fees and charges across all of the activities that we take place, and it's just not on the agenda today. Sure. Correct.
Thank you. And so through to you, the thing that I have been hearing is both sides, there still are two sides, right? And one side wants us to either extend the dates of this 75% or move it from 75 back to 50, again, more restrictive. So I don't know if there's any appetite to discuss that, or if that ship has sailed, but I'm duty bound to ask that, given the people that have come to me about it. So around the table.
Councillor Bosenworth.
Thank you. And Councillor Zavitz is on the same topic that I was going to ask a question on. But I was wondering if Mr. Kennedy could remind us what problems we are trying to solve on the 75%. I think we in committee last month, it was very clear why we moved it back to May 24th to September, because if you stretched it over the whole period, it was becoming ineffective. But if you could remind us what problems we were trying to fix with the 75%, and then I have a subsequent question depending on the answer.
Mr. Kennedy.
Through you. I think when we were discussing the 75% and the former high season, if you will, going from the Friday before Victoria Day all the way to Thanksgiving, based on doing just quick math, it essentially meant the same thing within that span of time. So committee at that time brought it back to the Labor Day weekend, and the goal is to try and protect the community character as much as possible. Like I know there's going to be differences in every municipality, but that was kind of the main goal, was the 75%, and that high season was to not have continuous rentals back to back to back to back to back. It was and due in part with the one rental group per 6 nights. That's to hopefully protect community character somewhat. So that there is, like I said, that there isn't back to back to back rentals all throughout the summer, every single week.
Go ahead.
My supplemental. So thank you for that answer. That was my recollection. So I wanted to be sure. so that period between 24th and September after Labor Day, the days after Labor Day is approximately 100 days. 75% of that is 75 days. And there are more than 75 days in July and August. So given that July and August are the peak rental periods with the peak pricing, are we going to achieve that objective of maintaining character, certainly during the heavy months? A renter is going to say, geez, if I got to choose 75 days, I'm going to choose it when I can get the highest price. And I think we may, an alternative to that might just be, say, 75% every month in that period. That's a suggestion. And then you would be guaranteeing that, 1 week out of 4, the neighbors get a rest and the character returns to non-commercial feel.
Mr. Kennedy?
Through you, it's a little difficult to think about this off the top of the head, but I think we got to remember that it's the high season, so the 75% only pertains to that time period each year. And outside of that time period, you'll be free to rent however long you want. So aside from that, I don't really have a great answer to that question at this time. I'd have to put some thought into that and get back to you.
Councillor Kent?
Just to supplement what Councillor Mazan said, I actually think he's on the right track. We talked about this yesterday. I think that June doesn't really count. I think that most of what I call high season is July and August. Kids are still in school. People are not renting their places. If I were an STR owner and I wanted to maximize my money, I would just not rent it in June and rent it consecutively July and August right through Labor Day. And I don't think we're achieving what we want to achieve. I think that if you did it on 75% of each monthly period, you'd give people a break. You'd allow the break for the neighbors and the other community members, preserve the character, and still allow these people to rent it, significantly. But they wouldn't be able to loophole around it by just renting out in June, which I think is where you may end up, or my concern would be that you end up there if you follow the way it's written now.
Councillor Bosenworth?
So an alternative to what we have could be moving the period from, the third week of June to the week after Labor Day. Then rather than having it from May until, just move it to say the third week of June. Then you would accomplish that.
Councillor Edwards, then Councillor Nishikawa.
Yes, thank you very much. And that's through the chair. I thought we said if we pass this, we can always revisit it in the future if it was a problem. Was I mistaken on that?
I mean, we always can revisit. I don't know that I remember putting that stake in the ground on this particular issue.
Yeah, so in other words, if we pass this today, at least we're getting something done, and then we can revisit if there is a problem. Thank you.
Mr. Kennedy?
Through you, I think what Councillor Edwards is saying or bringing up is the comment. I think it was actually myself. Having this passed and get something on the books, allow people to get used to the rules and go through the process for a year or 2 years, and then we come back and revisit it at that point. Staff would be more than happy to come back with a report, an overview of how it's gone in the first 2 years. And if there are issues, we can certainly make recommendations to amend the bylaw at that time. But I think that's where Councillor Edwards is going with that one.
Councillor Kent?
Oh, thank you. And through you, I think that to be able to do that, to come back and edit it after the fact, you're going to have pretty good data, which we've never had. Okay, so I would actually think you should try to get it as close to accurate the first time, then collect the data if we're able to do it better than we have in the past. And then if we have problems, we can fix it. But when I read through all the letters, and I missed the last meeting, so I can't speak to what happened at that meeting, but I know the prior conversation. All the letters in the packet have been referencing this same issue, which is this is not a commercial establishment. They don't want it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 30 days a month. So I think that changing that small thing would ensure some period of break and relaxation. And I don't think we should be waiting to fix it if it's an issue that other people think is an issue. And it's the same way I feel about these fees. It's, let's get it right up front. Let's not go low. Let's go high. Let's do it right.
Councillor Nishikawa?
Sorry, I'm just trying to follow a little bit what Mr. Kennedy was saying, and I'm speaking directly to you. I want to narrow down what our concerns are again. And are we now narrowing down our concerns to 8 weeks a year? And again, so I have to just ask myself, I'll ask, are there no other options? I just see this whole program becoming very, very expensive. And I'm not sure that over the 8 weeks, I don't know that we're going to capture is all I'm saying. And so I'm very concerned about how that direction is. And I don't get an answer today, I'm sure that.
I just, let me make sure I clarify on your question, because I think, are you asked if we're worried about only 8 weeks? I think we're worried about the most intensified sort of 8-week period in the entire 52-week, but not giving anything up anywhere else. The question is whether we've really resolved or tackled the problem that we set out to tackle by allowing people to run 4 consecutive weeks in each of 2 months, consecutive months, essentially. I think that's what I'm hearing. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, through you. Yeah, so that's the confusion, isn't it? I mean, we started out talking about 12 months and we're really distilling it down now to, again, here we are again, the 2 months of high season. And so for the other 10 months, we essentially don't have very much, right? We don't have a lot of tricks up our sleeve for those other 10 months, which doesn't address a lot of the concerns. A lot of the concerns I heard were throughout the year. They weren't just in, July the 12th. So, I mean, I'd be interested in something that include, I think the dates we picked, the May 4 to Labor Day makes sense as a capture. And it just said to Councillor Rob's point, maybe that's what we need to do is, whether it's 50%, of those months, you can only rent for 50%, or whether that equates to 75%, or not 1 week of each of those 3 months, or however many weeks it is. I think we need to be a bit more restrictive there. I like the idea of this breather, this concept of, because it speaks to both sides of the equation. Thank you.
Hey, Councillor Roberts, you're being patient. Thank you for that. You're on.
All right, thank you. Well, my memory, and serves me correctly, we did this for 2 primary reasons. Is for protection of the character and the environment. We have for the periods outside, let's call it July and August, in addition to July and August, we have a penalty system. So if you have bad behavior during any time, you could have a penalty, which would cause you to take notice and change your behavior or lose your license. So we're not really losing anything. I do support Councillor Kent's and Councillor Bosemer's point of view. It's really that the 75% in the July and August, because there's no loopholes. That's the period we're trying to protect. That's the period that everyone is here, and let our bylaws and our enforcement enforce our rules the rest of the time. But I think let's limit it to those 2 months. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Bosenworth, did you have your hands up? Or just one of them?
I might have, but I've withdrawn it.
Thank you. Okay. I'm stuck on moving forward here. It seems to me that what we really have between is a group who feels we should be putting further restrictions on the ability to rent in consecutive weeks during the July, August season. Everyone else, and I think Councillor Roberts did a really good job of highlighting the fact that even in the off season, we have much more consequences to misbehavior. And we also have a sort of a 1-800 number to call to have someone on site within whatever it is in the hour or a couple of hours to show up on site and deal with issues not at our expense. So there's that win 52 weeks of the year. In addition to that, we have constraints just to keep people from, you know, becoming a year-round 52-week-a-year operation. And the question is, have we done enough during the high season to keep one week, I guess, free, if you will? Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you, Peter. I misunderstood what you said about it's not being charged to us. Like somebody could go out to the site and that wasn't being charged. Because I saw that we were hiring a bylaw officer at 120,000 a year.
Mr. Kennedy?
Through you, I think to clarify your comments, what you're talking about is the requirement for the responsible person within the bylaw. And that is pretty much common in every single short-term rental licensing bylaw that I've seen in Ontario and elsewhere. So that essentially means when we're not on shift at, you know, say 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and there's a raging party going on and someone wants to call and file a complaint, instead of calling us because we're not here, there is that 1-800 hotline number through the Granicus software that people can call. That hotline person will then call the responsible person that's registered on that licensed short-term rental. And that responsible person now has to be at that property within 1 hour to deal with the issue and stop the noise, the fireworks, whatever the issue is. And that does come at no cost to us. We can certainly follow up after the fact and deal with it. But that whole process is a requirement within the bylaw. And again, does not cost us anything.
Great, thank you. Okay. Councillor Bosenworth.
I think a simple solution would just be to change the May 24th date to some date in June. And then we've got the ultra high period. The point of the restriction is to ensure that we're maintaining the sense of neighborhood, and that will guarantee out of the 8 or 9 weeks, there'll be at least 2 weeks that will not be rented.
Let me ask a question. If we pushed May 24 to June 15, would you have to push out correspondingly at the back end as well? Just leave it alone.
Sorry, mic's off.
I shouldn't have spoken anyway. You could just say, leave the period the same, because it's an obvious period, Victoria to Labor Day, and just add 3 words of each monthly period, 75% of each period. So each period they have to meet the requirement. It gives them a little flexibility.
I like that.
Councillor Edwards.
Could we just say you're allowed 3 weeks rental in June, July, and August?
Each.
Yeah, 3 weeks in each month. And then you've captured it, because it makes it very, very clear.
Okay, for those who were raising this issue, and I'm not taking any vote here, but just sort of thumbs up, thumbs down. Does that generally cover the issue that you wanted to have covered if we did that? Mr. Kennedy.
Through you, just maybe a suggestion, just on an enforcement perspective, rather than putting weeks as the number, I would suggest putting an actual number of days per month. So I would suggest say you're allowed to rent up to 21 nights in each of the months of June, July, and August. That would be, on an enforcement perspective, that would be much easier to track rather than saying you have 3 weeks.
All right, I'm seeing lots of thumbs up. Councillor Roberts, you heard all that? You're okay. We're going to take, sorry, Councillor Zavitz.
For you, but that is inclusive of the 6-day maximum rental. Right? So our week is 6 days, not 7. Right?
That I don't
Right?
know.
No, I thought I thought it was, sorry, through you. I thought it was a maximum of 6 days.
Minimum.
Oh, sorry, a minimum, but can that be consecutive? So you can rent 2, 3, 6 day periods.
Okay, I'm going to take 5 minutes so that Director Prosky and CAO Pink can confer on an amendment, and then we'll see if that goes anywhere. Thank you.
Sally?
Rob and Sally. Rob's here.
Sorry, Rob Kennedy.
Oh, Rob Kennedy, yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry.
You need to take a break. We can-
Okay, all right, let's go with this. Before we're gonna table this discussion for now. I have not read a resolution, but we're going to table the matter. Because I have been asked by at least one person if we could move into closed and talk about some stuff on the closed agenda. So we're going to do that first, and we'll come back and deal with this later. So I need a resolution to move us into, oh, you want to just hold it off till later? Sure. So we'll bring Mazan back. She's going to be in and out of here like, okay. All right. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next issue. When we get into closed, we'll deal with this other thing. Okay. All right. I have a resolution. This relates to easement agreements with the Derbies. No presentation, I assume. Okay, moved by Councillor Zabit, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-011 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an easement agreement with Darrell Derby and Roxanne Derby and the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, the township, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Anyone with questions or comments? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Next one up is Watson. Moved by Councillor McIntyre. I don't think there's a presentation. Nothing. Nope. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that the original road allowance lying between concessions 12 and 13 lots 7 and 8 in the former township of Watt, now in the township of Muskoka Lakes in the district municipality of Muskoka, designated as Part 3 on Plan 35R-27454, Watson, roll number 2-19-020, be declared as surplus land. And that the original shore road allowance lying in front of the said original road allowance lying between concessions 12 and 13, lots 7 and 8 in the former township of Watt, now in the township of Muskoka Lakes in the district municipality of Muskoka, designated as Part 1 on Plan 35R-27454, Watson, roll number 2-19-020 be declared as surplus land. And that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of the said properties pursuant to sections 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001, and that bylaw 2024-081 be given 3 readings and passed. Any questions? I'll call it. All in favor? It carries. Thank you.
We can skip the next one. Come back to it.
Skip to the next one and come back to it. All right. I wasn't tracking very well here. Which one did we just do? Watson? Next one is global inspection. This one is site plan control. Okay. This one is site plan control on Pier 100. We have nothing fresh to be delivered up on that, I don't think. No. All right. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa. Sorry. Seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-085 to designate site plan control, part of lots 28 and 29, concession 12, more particularly described as parts 4 to 6, plan 35R-25913 bracket Monk, 2784805 Ontario Inc. bracket Pier 100, roll number 9-13-066 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions, comments, Councillor Mazan and Councillor Nishikawa?
Thank you. And through you, further to the discussions earlier, we started the discussions on the site plan control. And I know that I think there was some discussion about this last month, but I know that there's been some interest or discussion around it. In a longer term monitoring of the plantings in particular. And I just wanted to hear from staff if they have sufficient direction or an approach that they may take to ensure the viability and the health of long-term like the plantings that are being considered.
Ms. Crowder.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Mazan. Yes, so we heard at the last meeting that there was some interest in monitoring, and that is certainly a provision that staff can include in the site plan agreement. We have before included monitoring for revisions, typically for a period of up to 10 years, but council can decide or give advice on if they think that's an appropriate time frame. But essentially what would happen in a situation like this is that we would include a provision to require monitoring of the plantings, and that a qualified professional be the one to do the monitoring and provide a letter or report to staff on a yearly basis to provide input on whether they believe that the plantings have been maintained properly, whether any are dying or failing. And there is a provision that we include in the site plan agreement. It's a regular provision that any plantings that do fail, that they be replaced. So
Just a quick.
Sorry, go ahead. Follow up.
Yeah, just so I'm clear, do you need further direction then from us as council to ask for the third party? Or does staff have direction already? Do we need to add something to provide further direction?
Through you, Chair.
Thank you.
No, you don't need to add anything. Site plan control has been delegated to staff, and we can input that provision in. We've heard that is the desire of committee and council, which is always helpful. But I think in this kind of situation, given that it's a resort property and the scale of the property, we likely would have looked at including a provision regardless, but we can definitely put that in.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a quick question? I may have missed the answer already. Will those annual reports be on the public record?
Through you. It's a great question.
Thank you.
Typically, like if well, it's always a good question if I don't automatically know the answer, but typically if a document is provided and it's registered on title, then that makes it publicly available information. Whereas if documentation is provided that is between an individual property owner, then it becomes more of a private matter. The updated monitoring reports would be sent directly to staff. It wouldn't necessarily be registered, but I see CAO Pink had his little hand up, so.
You saw correctly. You need glasses, but yeah, go ahead. CAO Pink, go ahead.
Here, I was trying to help you. I'm like, yeah.
I didn't say it.
Just to maybe clarify for council, in my opinion, and I stand to be corrected, but the site plan process itself, the agreement, as Ms. Carter correctly stated, would be registered on title. The Planning Act would say all those documents would be available to the public. However, sort of follow up, maybe enforcement related, those documents wouldn't be available to the community. If it's just staff's review of an agreement and monitoring, likely we would suggest those wouldn't be voluntarily disclosed, but any member of the community could likely submit an FOI request and it would go through the MFIPA process and we would determine whether they could be released or not. But again, the agreement itself certainly would be available. Future enforcement activity, likely not. And that helps.
Thank you. That does help. And I was obviously just trying to make sure that councillors and non-councillors who have a big interest in this are kept up to speed. That's all. Councillor Roberts, did you have your hand up? Oh, it is up. I see it. It's yellow.
Yes, thank you very much. And through you to Ms. Crowder, you mentioned when you were talking about the monitoring and annual report, and I am very comfortable with that with a typical residential property that would be more than sufficient. But given that this is a resort area, given that the plantings are most beneficial within the ribbon of light, 30 feet or 50 feet from the shoreline. I think, and given that there'll be a lot of people on using the shoreline area and a very small shoreline, is that I suggest that the site plan agreement would have more than once a year. So to make sure that these plantings that are in place aren't trampled down, because if it comes annually, then it could be 2 years before you see anything happening. So I would encourage the agreement to be much more than once per year. So I hope you would take that under consideration.
Ms. Crowder?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Roberts. Typically, in a site plan agreement, it's being entered into between the property owner and the township. And within that agreement, standard provisions would state that the property owner should be monitoring these plantings that they've agreed to on the agreement at all times. And if they are failing, that they should be replaced. That being said, I guess I'm just thinking of this from a financial lens, but also just a feasibility lens. Would we have a qualified environmental professional coming out to monitor the site more than once a year? I don't think we've ever been quite that extensive, but I see Mr. Sharp has some input.
Mr. Sharp, and then Councillor Bosenworth.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I appreciate Councillor Roberts's suggestion. My only concern is that, you know, typically we would require annual reporting. The concern being that in this case, like typically who's ever going out to do the inspection would want to see conditions in a leaf on growing season state versus, you know, in the dead of winter when there could be 2.5 feet of snow on the ground and no leaves. So personally, I think a one-time annual inspection per year is sufficient, but of course, open to any other suggestions or conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Councillor Bosenworth.
Thank you very much. I think anything more than once a year that requires a professional person to come and do a report would be a financial onerous and also doesn't work in the middle of the winter. What I would like to say is that I think once these agreements that are in place with our very capable staff who've had a lot of direction from both council and the community about what is important here, I believe that we will look back 5 years from now and find that there will be tremendous improvements, net improvements, visible, you know, tactile, real improvements, particularly at the waterfront. 50 feet of you know, local species growing fervently with a little walkway through. We could see in 30 years, we could see a small, you know, forest of trees there, and the place will be completely transformed. And I think we're on the right track.
Councillor Roberts, I see your hands up again.
Yeah, just a follow-up. I guess I'm going to say I'm not too concerned about the financial part of this. This council committee hangs their hat on being environmental. So we're not putting in plantings to make the place look good. We're putting in plantings to protect the environment. So maybe it wouldn't be wise to hire a professional to do it, but I think at the very least we could ask the owner to send in photographs on more than once a year that they are doing what needs to be done to protect the environment.
I understand. Sorry, and just let me respond quickly off the top. I understand your point, but at some point in time, we do not want to run 2 tiers of environmental diligence. We don't do this anywhere else, and I think it's a bit high risk to start doing it selectively as well. Sorry, who had their hand? Was that? Oh, Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. I didn't want to miss the opportunity to discuss that we were going to allow a creative opportunity for fencing as opposed to just a chain link fence. I didn't want that to be a requirement. I think it's just an ugly add-on in our municipality, and I don't think we should encourage it myself.
Thank you for that. Yes, sir. Ms. CAO Pink, or who you pointed? I don't know who you're pointing at. Go ahead.
I think if I could, thank you, just take an opportunity to put a little bit of perspective. I think we need to be cognizant that the province recently amended the Planning Act and specifically prohibited council from approving site plan agreements. So providing very specific direction as to everything in the agreement is sort of circumventing that legislation. I think we need to be careful of that. I think what might or should give council some comfort, and it has been on my list and radar for a long time, but I'm waiting for the official plan review appeals to be resolved. Staff intends to bring not just an update to the site plan control bylaw, but site plan control guidelines for committee's consideration, so that a little more detailed in the official plan. There can be talk about the extent of plantings, the type of plantings, pavings, fencing, all these things. And then those set of guidelines can be very helpful to staff when they review site plan agreements in general. But my suggestion to you would again be consistent, and staff intends to, in their review of a future site plan application on this property, and not treat again a certain applicant or property any differently than we would others. And that's staff's intention to review this. So appreciate the input. It's helpful to understand what the community concerns are, so staff can try to address them. But we again aim not to be punitive or single individual properties out or past actions, etc. So again, just be cognizant that legislation, this is a staff delegated authority. We will do our best. We review approximately 100 of these a year, and we will ensure that it is a very tight and good agreement and achieves the objectives that I think we're all trying to hear. And stay tuned. We will bring site plan control guidelines hopefully relatively soon in front of council. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay. Councillor Edwards.
Just wanted to say I would be content with once a year. I think we should have it for 10 years though, just so that they do mind, because they didn't take building permits out when they did things. So I'd like to see it for at least 10 years. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to assume that we've all had a chance to make our suggestions to staff as to how the site plan goes ahead. And there's probably not much more to say on that subject. So I read this. I think I read this resolution, didn't I? Yeah, okay. Good, then we're ready to call the vote. We've heard lots of questions. Does anybody need to hear it again? All right, it's moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-085 to designate site plan control part of lots 28 and 29, concession 12, more particularly described as parts 4 to 6, Plan 35R-25913 bracket Monk, 2784805 Ontario Inc., Pier 100, roll number 9-13-066. Be ready first, second, and third time, and finally passed. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Okay. This one, we're just going to go back one in the agenda list. It's a motion made by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-064, being a bylaw to appoint a building inspector for the enforcement of the Building Code Act and the building bylaw of the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be ready first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Anybody with any questions? Councillor Nishikawa.
I'm just curious, have we met our, we were shy of inspectors? Are we at our level now?
CAO Pink.
I believe with Mr. McNeil starting, I believe that brings us to our full complement.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, I'll call a question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay, moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved, the council in closed session convene at what? 12? Oh, 2:43. Yeah. PM. 2:43 PM. 4A, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals, section 239 sub 2E of the Municipal Act 2001. And that's number 1, confidential report CCS-2024-18. B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, section 239 sub 2 sub B of the Municipal Act 2001, if required, which presumably is no longer. And number one, confidential report CCS-2024-19. C, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, section 239 sub 2 sub F of the Municipal Act 2001, if required, which it is. This is the reason it's been requested. So all in favor? So we're going to go to closed. We're going to shut down the communications and clear out the room, and we'll be back on in about 3 minutes.